Hello again, and welcome back. It's week 2 of my Learn Italian challenge. Today is October 5th, it's day 8, and as I mentioned previously, my plan for this week is to shift my focus a lot more from vocabulary to grammar points. I will still continue to do my Anki flashcard reviews. I've already spent 60 minutes today reviewing flashcards, but on top of that, I will be going through the grammar notes and the textbook and copying them down onto my iPad. The reason why I love doing this is because I get to incorporate a lot of sensory feedback into my learning by using a pen and paper or the equivalent. This makes it so I have sort of like a library in my head where I can organize all the grammar points that I am seeing and use visual memories and memories of me writing down the different points to call these points back into my consciousness when I need to use them. Okay, let's begin. I'm so excited. So, these are the notes that I have for today. More specifically, I covered the noun endings in the singular and the plural, the indefinite article, the adjective buon, which behaves like an indefinite article, the endings of adjectives, the definite article, and I forgot to write this down, but the adjective bello, which behaves like a definite article, different usage notes, some irregular plurals, quite annoying that Italian has them, 4 irregular verbs that end in are, the present progressive, which I guess is just like the present progressive in Spanish, possessive adjectives, and their usage notes. Looks like the possessive adjectives almost always take definite articles, which makes Italian more similar to Portuguese than Spanish and French in this regard. And one more thing that I would like to complain about, this isn't about Italian, but about this guy, my Apple Pencil that I got this week after my previous one took its last breath. As you can I locked my iPad. Good job, me. As you can see from my notes from the previous week, my previous Apple Pencil was responsive to pressure, so by altering the pressure, you could, give different width to the strokes, but with this one, there's nothing like this. So the character of my notes is going to change, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm gonna have to get used to writing like this. I don't know, maybe it will make my notes less messy overall, but this is what I have to deal with. Hooray. I spent 60 minutes reviewing flashcards, 55 minutes writing grammar notes, which puts me at 105 minutes for today. That is 15. No, I cannot count. This puts me at 115 minutes for today. That one is correct, which is 15 minutes more than I needed. 15 minutes of debt that carries over from last week repaid. 15 more minutes of debt to repay sometime this week. I am so on top of this. Here are my Anki stats for today, and as you can see, no new cards added to the vocabulary deck. 6 ottobre, giorno 9. I've already spent 60 minutes reviewing flashcards today, and I'm gonna spend the other 40 minutes for today making more grammar notes. I think at some point I will start making flashcards for Italian grammar review, simply because so far there are so many exceptions to basically every rule. I was hoping Italian would be a little bit more regular, a little bit more like French or Spanish or Portuguese, but there's so many exceptions already that I think the best way to practice them and get them to sink in deep into my brain would just be to make some model phrases with adjectives with different endings for the different genders, especially. So I think I'm gonna maybe do that tomorrow, and for now I'm gonna continue digging deeper into the grammar of the language. So here's how my 40 minutes of grammar study went today. First, I went over additional usages of the possessive adjectives. Then I went into questo and quello, which quello seems to resemble the definite articles just like bello. And then there's the other weird things happening here. If they're used as demonstrative pronouns, they're basically like adjectives. When they're adjectives, they're basically not adjectives. It's a little confusing. I also added more irregular verbs to the mix. These guys over here. Oops. Come on, focus. Why is this not focusing? Why are you not focusing? There we go. This is the verbs that I added yesterday. These are the verbs that I added today, and I've tried to add regularities in red and irregularities in blue, sort of. I'm gonna need like a lot of review to get all of these as I'm supposed to. And also for dare and stare, I added these tables to compare how they are conjugated in the other tenses that I'm gonna need to learn later on, and it seems that these two are kind of exactly the same, and they also resemble avere significantly, so this is very good to keep in mind. And I've also realized that the past participle for stare and for essere is the same. So I don't know how Italians distinguish these two, probably just context. Anyway, and there is something very weird going on here that I would like to know about. Cause, on God, what is this syntactic gemination thing? Syntactic gemination. Let's see, Wikipedia. Syntactic gemination or syntactic doubling is an external sandy phenomenon in Italian, other Romance languages spoken in Italy, and Finnish. It consists in the lengthening gemination of the initial consonant in certain contexts. Oh. 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 So it's like, that's why it's like o paura and it's not o paura. Let me see the contexts. All stressed monosyllables and some unstressed monosyllables a, blue, ke, ki, cho, da, di, do, fa, fra, fu, ja, ju, a, o, la, li, ma, me, mi, ne, o, piu, pio, qua, qui, re, sa, se, si, sto, sta, sto, su, te, tra, tre, tu, va, etc. All polysyllables stressed on the final vowel. So, like città and università. Parigi è una città bellissima. I'm not doing the gemination all correct. Let me try again. Parigi è una città bellissima. Parigi è una città bellissima. I'm gonna figure out how to do this gemination thing. Don't worry, I'm just gonna need practice. Come va. It's come va. It's not come va. It's come va. Come va. Okay. Should I say it once more? Come va. A few paroxytones. Words with stress on the second to last syllable when they are not substantivized. Come, dove, ove, qualche, sopra, sovra. This is a lot, but I think all of this is just the formal description of what is happening, and this can probably be more easily picked up by just listening to the language and how people pronounce these words. But I think it's very good to know that this is happening, because nowhere in the textbook was this specified, and it seems to be very important. Anyway, that's all from me for today. These were my 40 minutes spent on grammar. Oh, and one last thing before I go to my Italian speakers currently watching this. Were you aware of this? I mean, you were probably intuitively aware that this is going on. You can probably tell when foreigners make a mistake pronouncing this, but has anyone told you that this is like syntactic gemination, or do you have any Italian term for this? Let me know in the comments, because this is probably one of the, maybe actually the most interesting phenomenon about Italian that I have come across so far. I will see if I revise my statement when I get to the subjunctive, because the Italian subjunctive seems so scary, but that is further down the line. Good evening, it's day 10th or October 7th of my Learn Italian challenge, and as you can notice, my setup is a little different for tonight. That's because Lausanne is starting to get incredibly cold in the evenings, and I don't yet have the heating turned on, so I felt like the only way to motivate myself to do work tonight would just be being snug and warm in my bed. I know it's not the greatest idea to do your work while in your bed, but I feel like my situation for tonight justifies it. Anyway, I've already done, I think it's 30 minutes of review. Yes, 30 minutes of flashcards review. So my plan is to do another 10 minutes of flashcards review and 60 minutes of making grammar notes for tonight. Yeah, this is what my day or evening is gonna look like. So to recap what I did yesterday, I did 40 minutes of flashcards review and only 45 minutes of making grammar notes because I fell asleep. That puts me at 30 minutes of that right now that, don't worry, I'm gonna recover, just watch me. Today is October 8th, it's day 11, and I've already done 40 minutes of flashcards review, and for the next 1 hour I plan to continue making grammar notes and In particular, today is the day where I will be tackling the articulated prepositions, which is probably one of the parts that makes Italian such a crazy language. There's so many of them. Yeah, let's get going. These guys. Yep. These guys. This is what came out from my notes for today and yesterday. Yesterday I focused on the irregular verbs dare, stare, andare, and fare. And gotta admit, I went on a short rabbit hole investigating the etymology of all of the forms of andare, because for some reason in all Romance languages the verb to go is just a few different verbs together in a trench code. Like these forms, vado, vai, va, vanno, all of them are like a different verb that just stuck around and only produces forms in these conjugations. It's the same thing with Spanish, it's the same thing with French. And to me it's fascinating how they all use different main verbs, because andare also exists in Spanish, but in Spanish it means something like to run around, and it's not the main verb that is used to mean to go. Oh yeah, yesterday I also copied down the tables for must, can, and to want. And this has been a really useful exercise to me because it's so fun just trying to notice the similarities and differences and coming up with ideas already for what the regular conjugation patterns would be for the different tenses. Like, for example, for the future and the conditional, they just have different stems. Like the irregular verbs just have different stems, but all of the endings are the same. Also seeing that in the present subjunctive, the first person plural form is the same as the present first person plural form. The imperfect is very regular even for irregular verbs. And yeah, these are my observations. Today, on the other hand, my grammar hour, L'ora, was spent on figuring out how you express what the time is. Of course, this monstrosity of articulated prepositions. I mean, they're actually quite regular, and for example, there's something similar in Spanish happening too, but it's only in the spoken speech. But here it's like written out explicitly with all of the definite articles that nouns take, have different uses when to use these and when not to use these. And then I focused on the present, and this is close past of regular verbs. And the close past in Italian is very similar to the composite past in French. It's just the same two auxiliary verbs used in the same cases. Essere goes with verbs of movement and state. You have the exact same agreements, except that in French it's only in the written register that this agreement kind of happens. In Italian it's also pronounced, because these differences are pronounced. And I also looked into some of the ways to form the past participle. This was my grammar hour for today. And here is my proof of how much time I spent reviewing flashcards. And as you can see, no new flashcards added today. So, today is October 9th. It's day 12 of my Italian learning journey. I'm wearing a coat because it's freezing in my room right now. Today, I already spent 30 minutes on vocabulary review, and I will also claim that I spent 15 minutes practicing my speaking in Italian. So how did that happen? How did I get the chance to speak Italian? Today, during one of my exercise sessions for one of my classes, we were doing statistical analysis on our computers, and we had a task where we had to estimate how fat a pig is going to grow when it gets to 12 years of age, and whether the fat pig could fit on a couch without breaking it. And at one point it just started feeling so absurd that I was derping out and was like, okay, I'm just gonna start producing the most Duolingo lesson 3 types of absurd sentences to my Italian classmates that are sitting next to me and in front of me, and to the teaching assistants who are also Italians. So I was spitting bangers like il maiale più grasso pese 125 kg, allora il divano non basta. Things like that for like 15 minutes out of those 2 hours. I was having so much fun. One thing I figured out is that sometimes I don't get the exact vowel correct absolutely everywhere. I only have an approximate sense so far for a lot of the words in Italian, and generally that doesn't impede understanding, I feel like, but my friends notice and they're there to correct me immediately. So yeah, that was my experience trying to speak Italian for the first time and talking about fat pigs. Anyway, I still have 55 more minutes of learning to complete for today, and my plan is to first go through the irregular participles for the past tense. I mean, it's technically present perfect, but it has the meaning of a past tense, so that's why it's called a past tense. Yeah, there are like 20 something of them. And then after that, I think I want to add more flashcards to my decks, because I'm starting to run a little bit low on the reviews that I have to make, and I've already gotten into like a rhythm where I'm spending 15 minutes a day reviewing, so I'm gonna do that to counteract that depletion. So yeah, let's get going. Oh my god, it's finally warm in here again and I'm so happy. Today is October 11th, day 14 of my Learn Italian challenge, and as you can notice, I missed a day. I missed day 13 yesterday, but I had a pretty good excuse. I had a killer migraine for the whole second half of the day, so I just couldn't look at a screen without like wanting to like punch everything around me. So it was better for me if I didn't exert myself and just took the time to rest. However, I know that leaves me with 130 minutes of debt that I have to recover. I will probably only recover 15 minutes of it today, or at least that's what I'm gonna try to do. That would put me at 22 hours of studying Italian in total for the first 2 weeks. I think 22 is a good number, so I will leave it at that. And in order to add variety to my schedule for today, I'm gonna do 3 different things. I will do flashcards review, I will continue adding flashcards into my deck, and I will continue making some more grammar notes. And particular, I want to look more into the imperfect and the future tense, equipping myself with a good variety of the most common tenses that are used in Italian conversation. So, yeah, let's get it going. I'm too tired. I will do my recap for today tomorrow morning. But here's the proof of everything that I've done today. First, here is the imperfect and the future tense and the forms which I looked into, the differences in usages between the imperfect and the close past. I also read through the usage notes, but I didn't write much about it because it's pretty much similar to how it is in Spanish. It's just, there's no preterite, it's just the perfect tense instead of the preterite, irregular roots that I had already noticed doing my irregular verb writing exercise. I also reviewed a bunch of these verbs today in old tenses, and that made up the 50 minutes I spent today on grammar. Oh, and yes, the progressive imperfect, which is just the verb stare in the imperfect with the gerund, just like in Spanish. And here is the proof of the cards that I studied today. I spent almost 50 minutes on this, and the flashcards that I made today, 116 flashcards. You will see that maybe the quantity has been going down, but some of these flashcards are in the forms of full sentences as opposed to just individual words like earlier. And just to show you how my approach to adding vocabulary to my flash decks has changed, I started only highlighting and adding the vocabulary that I deem would be the most useful in my first 50 hours of learning Spanish. Like, I'm gonna get to all of these words at some point, but I feel like some are more likely to appear. I am more likely to encounter some of these compared to the others, so those would be the ones that I will be spending my energy on, because yeah, I am guided by relevance, and following words that feel more relevant makes it easier, or not easier, but I guess more effortless to complete. This was it from me for tonight, and I will share my reflections tomorrow morning. Buonanotte. So yeah, this is what I did for the past 2 weeks studying Italian. This is where 22 hours of study have gotten me. What did I learn during those 22 hours? So I've mainly been focusing on the building blocks of the language, vocabulary and grammar. However, so far I haven't put much effort into assembling these building blocks into coherent productive sentences. So this is where my focus is going to change for the next 2 weeks. I'm going to start putting more attention into actually making sentences on the spot. What is that going to look like? Stick around for my next video and to follow me on my journey. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope I gave you a realistic understanding of how somebody who's multilingual spends their time studying a new language. And I hope that I've inspired you to start studying a new language for yourself. I will see you all next time. Ci vediamo.